I found out on a Saturday at the farmer's market, between the bread stall and the flowers. It was an ordinary morning. I was holding a paper bag of peaches. The square was full of familiar faces, the kind you know just well enough to nod at in a town the size of Hawthorne Mill. And across the square, I saw my husband crouched down on the pavement, tying a child's shoe. The child was not ours. Our children were 16 and 14 at home, asleep the way teenagers sleep on Saturdays. The woman standing over them was not me. My first thought wasn't shock. That came later. My first thought was smaller than that, and somehow worse. I knew that woman. I had stood behind her in the checkout line at the grocery store. I had complimented her coat once by the school. We had smiled at each other 100 times without ever really meeting. My husband's other family lived 3 streets away from us, and for 6 years I had been waving at his other wife in the cereal aisle. Paul and I were married for 19 years. He was a contractor. He had built his firm from 2 trucks, a small crew, and a reputation for showing up when he said he would. In Hawthorne Mill, that reputation is worth more than money. We had 2 children, Claire, 16, who had just started driving and hated that I worried. Eli, 14, who Paul coached in baseball every spring without missing a game. I want to be honest about something, because it matters. Paul was not an absent husband. That's the part I still have trouble explaining. He remembered anniversaries. He called when he was running late. He knew how I took my coffee, and he made it for me every morning for 19 years without being asked. He wasn't absent. He was there half the time. I just didn't know where the other half went. His work explained everything. A contractor's hours are strange by nature. Early mornings, weekends spent checking on a job before the crew gets in. I never questioned it. Why would I? He had 2 trucks, one for work, one for the family. I was never allowed in the work truck. Insurance, liability. And for 19 years I thought that was just Paul being careful. And he always took the long way home. He said the highway made him anxious, that he liked the quiet streets better. For 19 years I mistook it for tenderness. I know now that the long way home took him down Cedar Lane. I didn't confront him at the market. I know people expect me to say I confronted him. I didn't. I stood there with my bag of peaches, and I watched my husband finish tying that little boy's shoe, and I watched him stand up and put his hand on that woman's back, and I did not make a sound. I went home. I put the peaches in a bowl, and the next Saturday I followed the work truck. It was 3 streets. That's all. Close enough that on a warm night, with the windows open, I might have heard their voices. A smaller house on Cedar Lane, a different mailbox, and on that mailbox was my husband's last name, printed neatly, like it had every right to be there. Her name was Rachel. She had 2 children, not teenagers like ours, small, a boy who looked about 6, a girl who couldn't have been more than 4. I sat in my car across that street for a long time. I did the math. That was the part that broke me. Rachel's son was born the same year Claire started middle school. Paul didn't leave one family to start another. He didn't fall out of love with us and into love with them. He simply built a second life 3 streets over while the first one was still running. For years, the way he ran 2 trucks. I drove a long way home that day, on purpose. Paul's route. And it took me right down Cedar Lane, past that smaller house and then home to ours. 19 years. He had been driving past one family to reach the other every single day and calling it the scenic route. I watched over the next few weeks. I'm not proud of it, but I watched. And the thing that finally undid me wasn't the house or the mailbox or even Rachel. It was the children. The way that little boy ran to Paul when he came up the walk. Easy, automatic. Not like a child greeting a visitor. Like a child greeting his father. That night, I went home and made dinner. Paul sat across from me and told me a long story about a job that was running behind. I passed him the salt. I smiled, and I began very quietly to plan. I'll tell you what I did plainly, because there was nothing loud about it. I did not scream at him. I did not throw anything. I did not call Rachel or stand on her lawn or make the kind of scene that a town like Hawthorne Mill would have chewed on for a decade. I gathered. Over the next several weeks, I became quiet, patient, careful with his life. I found the second bank account. I found the deed to the Cedar Lane house. I found the registration for the truck I was never allowed to ride in. I found photographs. I found dates. I laid all of it out on the dining room table one afternoon, while everyone was out, every document, every number, every lie with a date attached to it, and I organized it into a single folder. It took me 3 hours. When I was done, I understood my marriage better than I had in 19 years. Then I went to see a lawyer. Once. A small firm downtown, Calloway and Sons. I sat across from a very calm man named Mr. Calloway, and I asked him careful questions, and I listened, and I went home, and I made my decision. I had thought, at first, that I wanted to destroy Paul, to take everything, to ruin him, to leave him with nothing. But sitting in that lawyer's office, I realized something colder and truer. I didn't want to take everything from Paul. I wanted to leave him with exactly what he had built. And nothing else. So I was careful, and I was quiet, and I was legal. I moved what was legally ours into accounts only I could reach. I arranged a school in another town. I found us a place to live. I packed our 19 years into boxes on the mornings Paul was away. And there were so many mornings Paul was away. And on an ordinary Tuesday, my children and I simply left. No scene, no final fight. The house on Maplewood Drive was empty and clean. I left him the house. I left him the mortgage. I left him the debt that had quietly been keeping 2 households afloat. And I left him one envelope on the kitchen counter where he'd be sure to find it. There was no letter inside. I didn't have anything left to say to him. Inside the envelope were photographs. The house on Cedar Lane. The mailbox with his name on it. Rachel's children playing on a lawn he paid for. And one line, in my handwriting, on the back of the last photo. 3 streets. You were never as careful as you thought. There is one more thing. The cold thing. The thing I think about most. That same morning, before we drove away, I mailed a second envelope, identical to the first. I sent it to Rachel. I never met her. I never screamed at her or blamed her. For all I know, she was lied to as completely as I was. I will probably never know. But I decided she deserved to know the shape of the life she was standing in. I let Paul keep his house. I let him keep his debt. And I let him keep the knowledge, for the rest of his life, that I had known everything, walked through our home like nothing was wrong, smiled and passed the salt for weeks. And that when I finally moved, I took our children, our future and his secret all in the same morning. People think revenge feels like something. Heat, relief, a door closing. I'll be honest with you, because there's no reason to lie now. It didn't feel like any of that. It felt like nothing. And after a while, I understood that nothing was what I had wanted. For 19 years, I had felt so much about Paul. Love, worry, tenderness, the small daily ache of caring about another person. I didn't want to feel any of it anymore. And now I don't. He is a man who used to live in my house. That's all he is. I think about Rachel sometimes. Not with anger. That surprised me. I think about her with something closer to recognition. 2 women building 2 entire lives. 3 streets apart for years. Folding laundry, tying shoes, waving at each other in the cereal aisle, never knowing. We were the only 2 people in the world who could have truly understood each other. And we never will. I wonder if she drives the long way home now too. Or if she can't stand to. People think revenge is loud. It isn't. Mine fit inside an envelope. Paul spent 19 years driving the long way home, past one family, to reach the other. I used to think that was carelessness. Now I think it was the most honest thing he ever did. He could never quite arrive anywhere. I don't know which house he sleeps in now. I only know it isn't mine. And for the first time in 19 years, I drive home the short way.